Well, now that we've been able to try out a lot about CSS, let's go and apply this on our website project. I'll just close up the browser and the HTML windows we had from our tryout project from before. And we'll open up our website project folder down here at the bottom. When designing styles for a site, it's best to start with just a single page and then just link the styles to the other pages and add whatever styles are necessary. So we're going to start with the index page on our site. I'll double click to open it up in the browser. And I'll go back to my folder and drag it over to my text application and launch it there as well so that we can edit it. Now, the first thing I want to do is set up a style sheet for my site. I'll just make a new text file, and we'll immediately save that as our CSS style sheet. I'll place it in the same folder as our website project, and I'll just call it sftourstyles.css. Now, so we can make sure it's working, let's put our first style in here. It's great with most websites to start with a top-down approach. So I'm going to start by just changing the font for the body tag, and that should change the text for the whole site. We'll add in a body tag selector. I'll need the curly braces, of course, for open and close. And then we'll add a color attribute. Now, typically in my CSS files, I usually indent a little bit before adding the style. And that way it makes it a lot easier to find things and read the style rules. Here, I'll add in a font family property. And we'll set it to start with Helvetica, followed by Verdana, and then Arial, and finally a generic font definition, sans-serif. That way most of our viewers will see a nice clean font. I'm going to save my changes to my CSS file, and let's go back over to our document and we'll link our CSS file right on up. The link goes up in the header tag, and I'll put it right underneath the title. We'll need an href, and of course that's going to be our sftourstyles.css. We need to set the relationship with the rel attribute, so let's set that up next. And of course, this is going to be a style sheet. And lastly, let's add in the type attribute. And we'll define this as a text/CSS file. I'll set up a self-closer. We'll save our index page. And now we can check to see if our index page is using the styles properly. I'll go over and refresh the page. And we can see that all of our fonts have been replaced in the text with a nice sans-serif font. Here on the Mac, it's Helvetica. A good starting point for the rest of our styles might be the header and paragraph tags that we're using. So let's go back over to our CSS document. And I'm going to start by adding in some style rules for the main tags that we use, starting with the paragraph tag. Since we've already set the font family up in the body tag, and that's inherited automatically by the paragraph, let's set up the styles here instead. I'll add a style rule for font size. And I'll just set that to a nice readable 14 pixel size. I'll use a semicolon at the end. And let me go ahead and copy this, and I'll set up selectors and style rules for our main header tags too while we're at it. I'll paste it back in 3 times, and we'll use one for the H1 tag, one for the H2, and one for the H3. I still want the H1 tag to be bigger, so I'm going to make that 22 pixels. We'll make the H2 tag just a little bit smaller. We'll set that at 18. And we'll set the H3 tag at 16 pixels, so it's just a little bit bigger than our normal text. Let's save, and we'll see what that looks like in our document. Now we can see the headers aren't quite so big, and the text is a little bit smaller, so it packs in a little bit better on the page. Now I want to set some colors up next, but before we do, let's talk about one other little syntax issue that we haven't dealt with, and that is comments. Let me go back to my HTML file first. As our web page code begins to get a little bit more complicated, it's a good idea to leave yourself notes, or possibly even leave notes to the next person who might be editing this page. And we can do that in both HTML and CSS, but they use slightly different syntax. So first, the HTML syntax. I'll go right below the nav tag here, and I'll add in what looks like the start of a tag, but this time I'm going to type exclamation point dash dash. Now that's the beginning of a comment. And the way the browser reads this, anything that follows this will be not used as code. So I could leave myself a message like, for instance, the main navigation starts here. To end a comment, I simply type -- and then the character we use to close off tags. Now notice these two start and end characters do not have to be on the same line, but anything included inside of those characters will be considered a comment. Now if we go over to our CSS file, let's see how we leave a comment there. We have the same concept, but instead of the -- characters, we're going to be using /*. That starts off a comment. I can type anything I want to in the middle. And to finish off my comment, I simply reverse those two characters. I type */. And once again, this comment can be on one line, or we could spread it out into the document, and whatever's included in those lines will be considered as a comment. Now, I pointed this out right now because I'd like to start using colors. And a good tip that I use when I'm creating my documents is to make a comment at the top that includes all the colors that I'd like to use. And then I could just copy and paste them into the documents later on. So I'm going to add 3 colors. And I'll type them in right here at the top. The first one is # 5E, 7C, and 88. And that's a medium blue. The second one is # 36, 3F, 45. And that's a dark blue. And the last one is # FE, B4, 1C. And that's an orange color. By putting these into a comment at the top, I don't have to worry about them messing up the code, but I also don't have to memorize them or scribble them on sheets of paper. I can just copy and paste them when I need to. I was going to set the H1 style to dark blue, so let me just select that color, and I'll just go to the H1 tag, and I'll add a color property. We'll paste in our color, and use a semicolon to finish that rule line. And for the H2, I wanted to use the medium blue color. So I'll set that up with another color property. And we'll copy and paste the medium blue color into that one. End it with a semicolon, save our changes, and we can go out and see how it looks. There we can see our blue color is a little bit lighter than the black it originally was, and we've got that lighter blue showing up for our H2 tag.